Hi, welcome back to the Northstar Politics Show. My name is Harry. You might know me on TikTok as TheChampagneSocialist or Harry, or the bloke that can't button up his shirts. I'm working on it. I'm learning. I'm very glad to be here on Northstar Politics to be talking about the various issues that have been going on in the world. In this episode, we will be discussing the New York mayoral elections. We'll be discussing the atrocities that have been going on in Sudan and Gaza. We'll also be looking at the royal family, boo, and also what role young men can play in making the world a better place and dealing with the issues that revolve around toxic masculinity. Let's get into it.
So Noah, you're sounding a bit different this week and you're looking a bit paler. Are you sure you're feeling okay?
I'm feeling fine. How are you doing?
Listen, Harry, welcome to the Northstar Politics Show. Thank you for coming.
No, thanks for having me on.
Guys, this is literally the first ever guest contributor. Can you believe it?
I'm very honoured to be the first. Thank you for having me.
Now listen, Noah's getting a lot of FOMO, but he's going to update us next week about where he's been. He's at the Young World Conference in Germany.
Oh, cool. Whereabouts in Germany?
Munich, actually.
Oh, lovely.
Which is basically just a talking shop for people to go and talk about how they want to change the world without actually changing it. But I'm sure he's going to give his little hot take next week. But listen, I don't even think I need to give you an introduction, right?
You're really butting me up.
No, because you are literally not the goat of TikTok when it comes to this politics thing.
I'm not going to say yes to that, am I? That'd be very conceited of me.
Okay, you know what? Yeah. Then
Say one of no.
Okay.
No, I wouldn't.
So let me not put words in your mouth then. Introduce yourself to the viewers at home. Who is Harry? Who is the Champagne Socialist?
Hello, my name is Harry. I've been making content on TikTok for 5 years now, just over 5 years, under the name The Champagne Socialist. It started as a university project when I was in my second year doing my undergrad. The project was so successful, I decided to continue it.
Yeah.
And I'm now here speaking to all you lovely people.
That's great. And the main question on probably everyone's minds at home is why the Champagne Socialist?
So the Champagne Socialist, why that name? So the name, the term Champagne Socialist, it means someone who espouses socialist principles and ideas, but comes from a position of privilege. So that is very much me. I've grown up very comfortable throughout my life. And I remember when I first started getting into politics, when I was maybe 14, 15 years old, there would be things that I would say and my mother would refer to me as a Champagne Socialist. And when I started making content when I was 20 on TikTok, I thought I wanted a good snappy username to keep people interested and engaged, to kind of understand where I was coming from. And I thought, why not the name The Champagne Socialist? And it stuck. But it's not my name. So when people will message me with that title, it's like, that's not what I was christened. My birth certificate doesn't say that. My name is Harry. Just call me Harry. That's absolutely fine.
And that's why this honesty and authenticity has got him 250 bags.
It is kind of insane, really. Because I don't, I think with a lot of this stuff, when I first started doing it back in 2020, I felt like the market was very saturated. And there was a guy that I used to follow, his name was Hugh, I believe, and he was doing content. I thought, I want to reach his level. He was on 30,000 followers. And then when I surpassed that, I was like, wow, okay, I'm actually going somewhere. But then I think every sort of milestone that I've hit, I mean, I owe it to the people that watch, because, I'm guy in my bedroom ranting about what's going on in the world.
You owe it to me. You owe it to me. I'm a person who watches.
Always reposting. I see you. I appreciate it. And so, everything that I've achieved, I think it's, I say it's more of achievement for the following and the community that I like to think that I've built. I can't go live anymore, unfortunately. Got banned about 4 years ago for nudity.
That's why I'm speaking the truth. You're speaking the truth.
I'm very grateful for everything that I've been able to achieve, and I owe it to everyone that follows and engages.
Nice. And do you remember how we actually met?
Yeah, I seem to recall it's about 2 years ago, because I saw some of your content. You were down in Dover, I believe it was, or you were down in Kent.
Old school times.
And you were doing a lot of the sort of Louis Theroux style, getting on the ground, speaking to people direct. It's definitely something I've never done, definitely not in a while. And I thought, I love what this guy's doing. And then I reached out to you because I was doing Not to Get Political, the podcast we used to run. And you agreed to come on. First time I met you, I was just like, wow, okay. First guest.
We're the same.
No, come on. No. You make me feel very small. And I'm quite tall. But you're on another level. And Yeah, I think we just went from there, and then I had you on twice, I believe.
Yeah.
After the when was it? It was after the ceasefire march that happened
old
on Remembrance.
times.
When AFC divorce went down and caused a load of problems.
Honestly, that feels like such a long time ago, and that's why it feels like such a full circle moment.
I know,
to me,
yeah.
Because the first time I ever went on a podcast was literally your podcast.
Really?
And now the
Wow.
first guest that we're having on this is literally you, and also. Just in front of everyone at home, I actually want to give you a big thank you because when you reached out to me, I was on like little 10K followers or something. I was small fry. No one knew my name. But then all of your followers, you still decided, you know what? Let me chat to this guy.
You were definitely someone I wanted to have on. And I think a lot of people put a lot of put a lot of emphasis on following and stuff like that. And I definitely think when you're starting something, it can often feel like I want to get the big hitters on. But for me, it's just like people that are interesting to talk to.
Yeah.
So, whoever I can have on that I feel has something to say and I want to share it on my platforms, I'm going to give them that platform.
And I obviously don't follow that philosophy because I literally got a big hitter on as our first guest.
You have to do it. I mean, just be glad I don't have an agent or anything like that. Dealing with agents, trying to organise stuff, it's great. Like someone that I know personally, but I have to go through their agent and they're like, yeah, can you give us 200 quid? It's like, fuck off, I'm not doing that.
And now listen, this episode, we have a lot to dive into. I know you got some hot takes prepared, as well.
Yes.
But before we get into that, we're going to make it a tradition to ask our guests this one simple question.
Yes.
What is your North Star? What is your aim? What is your guiding principle? Why do you do this in the first place?
My North Star is, I think, predominantly wanting people to be comfortable. I think for someone like myself who has grown up very privileged, I want people to have the childhood that I had. It's always the privilege that I've had growing up. I think as I've gotten older, I've recognized as I have gotten older. So the best example I've got is, say, like the financial crash in 2008. I don't remember the financial crash happening. Mm-hmm. And I think that was because, I know it was because of the privilege that I had. My parents weren't affected. I don't remember my portion sizes for meals getting smaller. We still went on holiday that year. We still continued to go on holiday. I didn't notice any extracurricular activities I was doing. I didn't notice, sorry, you got to stop doing that now because of finances. Don't remember my parents arguing in the sitting room about this sort of stuff. And so for me, as I've gotten older, also because of my mother's background as well, coming from a very working class background, growing up with absolutely nothing, she's very much installed in me and my brother this acknowledgement of the privilege that we have, and with this privilege, using it to the best of your ability. So for me, I want to give a voice to marginalized communities where I can. I'm not going to speak over people. I'm just going to repeat what they're saying and try and further amplify it. So for me, that's been my guiding principle. And I like to think that I've been successful in doing that. And if I haven't, please let me know, because I want to do better all the time.
Wow. You know what? Harry for Prime Minister in like 2030s, 2040?
No, there's too much baggage on my TikTok account. There's no way I can do that.
Okay, cool. So I think we will get into the state of play now, because I really want to get your opinions on some of the hottest things this week. So without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome back to the State of Play, where we're just going to give a breakdown over the hot topics and current affairs this week. And we have committed to actually just always starting these with having our eyes on Sudan and Gaza, because we don't want this to fall off the mainstream media or the mainstream news. And so even though we're not experts on it in particular, we will give our thoughts, but I think it's important just to present the information, present updates to you guys at home, so you understand what's going on. So for Sudan now, in the past week, there's been a surge in global coverage of Sudan's civil war, following reports that the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, a powerful paramilitary group with ties to the UAE, have carried out mass killings of civilians. So last week, the image that went viral is just, it's horrible. It's a satellite image of the desert sands in Sudan being bloodstained. And it's a bird's eye view where you can obviously see dead bodies and the actual sand itself being coloured red. And that is only just one of the many shocking scenes to come out. And so, rightly so, in the last week, there's been absolute outrage across the world. People have begun to really campaign properly and raise awareness about the UAE's complicity in all of this. And in response to this outrage recently, so this is the update, the UAE have actually distanced themselves for the first time. So they've admitted their mistakes in the 2019 and 2021 Sudan their involvement in supporting the RSF in 2019 2021 in Sudan for the first time. So why is this actually a huge thing? Well, one has to understand the historical ties between the UAE and the RSF. So the UAE has cultivated very close ties with a man called General Hemedti, who's the RSF leader, and they've supported him since the revolution in 2019. Now, UN and media investigations have found a lot of evidence, people can search this online, that the UAE themselves have covertly armed and funded the RSF, even though Abu Dhabi denies this. And even in January 2025, the US sanctioned Hemedti and 7 UAE-based companies accused of funding him. And so the big news is this admission of their historical mistakes. So for the first time, Anwar Gargash, the UAE's top diplomat, admitted that the UAE made a mistake by not condemning or sanctioning the 2021 coup, where most of this support was given to the RSF. He said that we all made a mistake when the 2 generals were fighting today overthrew the civilian government. And that's just to give context to that statement about the 2 generals who are fighting today. On the one hand, it's the RSF. On the other hand, it's the Sudanese armed forces. And so this marks a policy reversal because, again, like I said, the UAE is now for the first time distancing itself from the RSF, which it once helped empower. Now, there is a lot of chat online around the UAE and its complicity in all of this. So just give me your thoughts around that.
I don't really know where to begin, really. I mean, I've seen some of the footage. I've seen the photos of the killing fields, and it's heartbreaking. Doesn't even begin to cover it. And I think for myself, I've obviously been aware of what's going on in Sudan, but not to the level that I would like to, nor have I explicitly made content about it. And that's something I need to apologize for on my end, because, all suffering is terrible and should be called out and condemned. So the fact that I haven't done that, that's something I'm personally ashamed of for myself. And I will be rectifying that the first given opportunity. But like you said with the UAE, I think obviously historically the UAE is engaged in a lot of sport washing, most notably Sheikh Mansour's ownership of Manchester City and the atrocities that the UAE have funded and have essentially been helped sort of covered up by their involvement within sports. And it's terrible. I also think, obviously the UAE being a very popular holiday destination for Britons, particularly Dubai, has sort of helped sort of launder their reputation as being a country where all manner of atrocities are being committed, both internally and also externally in places like Sudan, for example. And so, yes, I think it's very good that attention is finally starting to be drawn on the issue. And I hope, given what we saw in relation to when Israel was committing their genocide of the Palestinian people and basically how muddied their PR is now, hopefully that the UAE can go in a similar direction and people can really start hoping to sort of bring about proper change and implement sanctions that will make a difference and hopefully change things for the better.
And I think it's quite an interesting point you bring up around this, I guess, perceived lack of awareness from yourself, but then also other creators. Because even myself, I'm literally a Muslim creator, and I haven't really spoken out about it. And I think there's a lot of introspection that we all need to do to understand, well, why is that the case? Yeah. Because if information is flowing top down through media, and we kind of know it's going on, but we don't really have the motivation to talk about it, I think there is a lot of self-reflection that people need to do.
I think a lot of the times people can sometimes be scared of saying the wrong thing. I know with Israel-Palestine, for example, if you'd asked me 3 years ago what I thought about what was going on in Israel and between Israel and Palestine, I would have given you some wishy-washy answer. It would have been like, it's too complicated for me to understand. I don't really know, like, Israel has the right to exist, etc. Fast forward to 3 years now, I'm there like, Israel, I hate them. I despise the country. And Palestine must be free. And that's the position that I took. And that was only after like 2 weeks of really sort of engaging with it in sort of post-October the 7th. And that was to me like, look, if it took me that long, if it took me that short amount of time to really have those views on it, looking at something like Sudan, I will probably be in a similar direction and sort of using my platform for the better and drawing awareness to what's going on.
No, definitely. I think as well, a lot of people like to compare what's happening in Gaza and compare what's happening in Sudan and then try to have a gotcha moment to the left
Yeah,
wing
definitely.
activists.
I think it's a lot of like, well, you're not talking about what's going on in Sudan. Look at the genocide that's going on there, but you're talking about the genocide in Palestine. It's like, hang on, I thought you said there wasn't a genocide going on in Palestine. And so, yeah, I mean, I hate that. I think a lot of the time it's the whataboutisms that basically just to cover up people's complicity in the atrocities that have been going on. And I think, if you care about something so much, then talk about it. Don't use it as a hammer to sort of smack over other people's heads. Because then again, as you've said, you're just using it as a gotcha. You don't actually care about those issues. So yeah, definitely for myself, I will definitely be looking at it and talking about it more. And also the involvement that the United Kingdom's government has been having in it. Because I remember seeing clips of like David Lammy at refugee camps in Sudan. And he made some comments along the lines of, why isn't this being looked at by people in the United Kingdom?
I remember that as well.
And it's like, David, there's photos of you with Sippy Hotovelli, Benjamin Netanyahu, like, pipe down. You know what you're capable of.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've spoken at length as well in our past episodes around this kind of contradiction of the liberal order, where they only really uphold liberal principles when it suits their kind of geopolitical strategic interests. And you know what? The silver lining in all of this, even though if you can even say that, is that look what 1 week of global attention can actually do. The UAE are already backtracking their very explicit, the very well evidenced support of the RSF. Yeah, so.
I mean, and again, sort of drawing back, look at like something like Israel, for example. If you criticize Israel, you just get called an anti-Semite, and now everyone knows that being critical of the Israeli government and the IOF is not anti-Semitic. It's quite weird. A lot of the people who present themselves as being staunch defenders of the Jewish people consistently engaging with anti-Semitism by conflating Jewish people with the actions of Israel. What's going on there, guys?
And the last thing I want to say on this as well is just bring back shame. I can't lie. If you go Dubai and you think that's a good holiday, shame.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a staunch Dubai hater. Ever since it sort of became aware to me.
I'm gonna make a Northstar T-shirt. I've always been a staunch Dubai hater, right?
Well, that would be one of my immigration policies if I controlled the country. All the Britons in the UAE, I just wouldn't let them back in. I would just be like, you know what, you made your bed, lie in it.
Wait,
don't
so
come back.
Are you telling me the Britons want Sharia law? Is that what they really want?
Alhamdulillah, brother. We're getting there.
And moving on then to another update then around Gaza. So in Gaza, despite the ceasefire, there has been still reported deaths. There's still reported shellings in Gaza. A lot of Palestinians are literally sheltering for their lives, and famine conditions are still prevalent because not enough aid is getting in. So recently, the UK actually pledged £4 million to clear landmines to help the flow of aid into Gaza. So it will be used by the United Nations Mine Action Service to demine areas, preventing the safe passage of aid, because there's an estimated 7,500 tons of unexploded munitions currently stopping support reaching Palestinians, which is reported by the Foreign Office. And Yvette Cooper, out of all people, the architect...
Not going to speak.
No. I want you to speak. This is why I brought you here. Yvette Cooper is warning all of this aid is literally going to waste if they don't get it in. Now, just talk to me around that hypocrisy.
I mean, historically, we know that whenever there is a ceasefire between Israel and Palestine, the Palestinians cease, the Israelis continue firing. And they'll make up all manner of excuses for why they're continuing to fire. I mean, we saw it when they were shelling hospitals between 2023 to 2025. It started off as them saying, it was actually Hamas. And then when it became clear that the world did not care, they just openly did it and didn't even bother hiding the atrocities that they were committing. Yeah, I mean, all eyes still need to be on Palestine for sure, and also the involvement that the UK government has had in facilitating this genocide, because it's very clear that they endorse it, and it doesn't matter who gets killed. Even when 3 British aid workers were massacred by the Israeli state in April 2024,
the British patriots are quiet.
This was the thing for me. I think we knew that the lives of Palestinians did not matter in the eyes of the British government, but you would like to think that the lives of British people would. And when that would have been the opportune moment for them to suspend all weapon sales to Israel. But they continue. They essentially let the Israelis mark their own homework and continue to ship hundreds of thousands of pounds of arms to the state of Israel. And so, this is the thing. I feel like you could have this conversation every single week, and nothing is going to change. And we can see that it's starting to get to the British government, hence the prescription of Palestine Action, and the lies that have been shared about that organisation. And, you know, seeing people's nans being arrested on the streets because they oppose genocide. It's like, yeah, thanks for getting rid of those dangerous criminals. Where's my phone, by the way? Got nicked.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think, look, that's exactly why we want to start off with these topics, because these are the issues of life or death. And so it's very important to make sure that in a world where just because Sudan's the new hot topic, people don't forget about Palestine. Just because Palestine is the hot topic, people don't forget about Sudan. We need to have our full attention.
I think what you'll find is as people start looking more at what's going on in Sudan, I don't know if you've ever seen this meme where there's like a guy with like just staring like he's getting hypnotized, and there's like someone with the watch, and they sort of show different sort of years and like the different hot thing, and it's like this idea that you can't focus on more things at once, or like the I support the current thing shtick, and it's like people can focus on multiple things at the same time. That's what makes us great as human beings. I know our attention spans can be cooked to a certain extent, but
I know
no, it is
chronically online.
Yeah, definitely. I really do need to log off from time to time. But this is the thing. Then you start to feel guilty because it's like you want to talk about this and draw awareness to this. But definitely breaks are good. But no, stay as focused as you can, and don't stop talking about this stuff.
Exactly.
Because that's what these people want.
And more than don't stop talking about it, put your money where your mouth is, and don't put your wallet into things that are literally complicit in what's going on in both Israel and Sudan.
And what you'll probably find is a lot of like the BDS lists and stuff like that. A lot of the stuff you probably don't even engage with.
Exactly.
So you're not, I mean, are you boycotting it? Yes, but it's not something that you have in your day to day.
It's not a real
so
sacrifice.
It's really, yeah, exactly.
Okay. But moving on to, I guess, some positive news.
Yes.
So by the time people are watching this, Zohran Mamdani would have become the first Muslim socialist mayor of New York City. Harry, New York City is going to be ruled under Sharia law.
I know. Well, I know. I can't wait. I mean, I see Zohran Mamdani going around to all the gay clubs, and I'm like, yeah, he's probably just planning where they're going to put the. It's like, this can make a great mosque, guys. You know, can't wait to be there. Yeah, I think what we've seen with the campaign that Zohran has run, it's been one of optimism and hope, and it's really great to see that from a left wing perspective. Yeah. I mean, this was a guy that when he first started coming to our attention, he was polling at like 2%. He wasn't going to win the Democratic primary, and then he beats Andrew Cuomo and everyone else involved in that. And he's just, the trajectory has carried on, and people have been really galvanized by his campaign, even here in the United Kingdom and elsewhere. People are really engaging with what he's saying and the vision that he has for New York City. And people want that in the countries and cities where they live. And so hopefully that will continue. I think we're seeing it here in the United Kingdom with the surge of the Green Party under Zach Polansky, a message of hope. And actually, you know, things can get better. A complete 180 from the sort of corporate Democrats message of, well, we just got to keep these people out, but we're not actually going to do anything. But, you know, vote for us or you're a fascist. And clearly they've seen, obviously, last year when Trump got re-elected, that message does not run. You have to offer something, which is what Zohran Mamdani has been doing.
Exactly. And I think just for the viewers at home, because I think the interesting thing, like you pointed out, is not the fact that he's going to win or he's not going to win. It's about who he is as a political candidate, his political charisma, and the hope and optimism that he's inspired. So I'm just going to give a breakdown of his background, who he is as well, just so people who might not have heard of him before, if you haven't, or you're living under a rock, can understand his story. So Zohran Kwame Mamdani was born in Uganda and is of Indian Shia Muslim descent. His mother is actually the famous filmmaker Mira Nair. So to all my South Asian viewers, she actually directed one of my favorite films of all time, The Namesake. So shout out to his mom. And his father is a prolific academic who actually wrote the famous book, Good Muslim, Bad Muslim, which actually explores, it's like a political, historical book focusing on the rise of extremist Islam as a modern Western phenomenon. And I think this unique background, this confluence of both his artistic upbringing and also the political upbringing has really shaped him as a politician. And so, like you said, he becomes NY State Assembly member in 2021, and earlier this year he beats Andrew Cuomo to become the Democratic mayoral candidate. Now, the reason that is such a big thing is because Andrew Cuomo was the governor of New York State for the last 10 years. Now, governors of states are basically like, it's like basically being a president of a state, right? That you're a huge name. And so he represents the very kind of old style Democrat politics, So he's anti-Trump, but he's still pro-Wall Street. Another politician submissive to corporate interests, pro-Israel, and of course has 13 sexual assault allegations against him. And Cuomo is a very petty man. It's a sassy man pandemic, as we all know. So he continued to choose to run to be a mayor despite losing the Democratic primary, like Harry said, earlier this year. So what are some of the things that Zohran actually stands for? Because it's a mayoral election, it's New York City. Free bus service citywide, rent freezes and stricter accountability for negligent landlords, a chain of city-owned grocery stores focused on affordability, universal childcare for children aged 6 weeks to 5 years, and tripling the production of rent-stabilized union-built housing. Now, the thing I want to ask you and get your thoughts on is this is obviously a generational campaign, and it's set a sort of playbook for progressive movements in the future. Yeah. What are some of the things that you think we can learn from it?
I think one of the things yes, the social media output of Zohran Mamdani has been amazing. It's really snappy, really engaging. It's been shared worldwide, as we've seen. But the key thing within that is the message, the ideas that are being put across in very simple ways, which is obviously a very good thing. And what I've noticed about ever since the success of Mamdani winning the Democratic primary, I've seen other corporate Dems engage in that sort of snappy social media output, but it doesn't resonate the same way, because the message isn't there.
I see.
And that's the main thing. It's like if you're making a meal, for example, like, you know, the good foundation of any good meal is garlic, onions, that sort of stuff. Getting your cooking.
A bit of a chef.
Yeah, no, maybe. But you know, you need something with kick, right? You need something that actually gets people engaged and liking it. And look, it doesn't matter how you, you know, if it doesn't matter what you do to a pile of shit, you know, if it's shit, it's shit. You're not gonna, no one's gonna go near it. But what Mamdani has done with his campaign and the message that he's put across, it resonates with a lot of people. Because even though, look, I've never been to New York, I don't think I'm even allowed to go into the United States at the moment. You know, I look at the stuff that he's advocating for, and I think I want that where I live. Yes. I want that for people around me. You know, the idea of, you know, rent freezers, free public transport, these are all really good policies. You know, why wouldn't you want that? Same with like, helping kids as well. As a teacher myself, I mean, one of the reasons that kids aren't able to achieve as much as they can to their potential is because, you know, at home and the resources aren't there. And, you know, here in this country, we've had 15 years of austerity measures. It's going to be more difficult for parents to provide for their children. And that's where the state should step in and help people out.
Yeah. I think one of the interesting things that you brought up there is this idea around how he has spice, he has a bit of kick. Yeah. And it actually, the aesthetic helps.
He's a normal dude.
Yeah.
I think that's the main thing. Like, I feel like everyone can look at someone like Mamdani and relate to him in some way. So for me, you know, his love of food and his love of football, those are two things that I can relate to him over. The way that he talks about this stuff, it comes from a place of genuine passion. You know, look at someone like Keir Starmer, for example. Keir Starmer genuinely loves football. Arsenal season ticket holder. He's been following them for time. But when he talks, when he talks about football, it comes across like an AI is telling him what to say. Yeah. Doesn't come across as genuine. Whereas someone like Mamdani, I can see him playing 5-a-side, 7-a-side on a Thursday or Friday evening. I can see him being in the pub, watching the football, going to games, and engaging with that culture. It comes across as sincere, and I think that's why people have really resonated with him.
And where that sincerity comes from, I think, is something that corporate Dems or even like traditional Labour Party stooges like Keir Starmer, etc., fail on, is that they don't. Zohran Mamdani does not speak the patronizing language of identity politics. He doesn't feel woke in the same way. And the reason for that is because he's chasing common needs. Yeah. His key campaigning point is about affordability. And that's entirely based on class interest, right? So if you're, you know, working class, if you're downwardly mobile graduate, if you're a young person, if you're petit bourgeois, so to use a Marx term of just being a small business owner, you are basically being brought into this community that he's trying to build. And I think that the thing that, you know, Kamala faced, and that was basically her Achilles heel, was that she didn't stand for anything. Yeah. Well, she was just trying to propose, or I guess brand herself as the antithesis to Donald Trump. But having values and having a positive sort of vision is not about saying I'm just not these bad things. That's
Yeah.
exactly what Labour did for Conservative in the last
Yeah,
general
exactly.
election.
I mean, look at the Labour Party manifesto in 2024. It was a photo of Keir Starmer with the word change in bright red letters. What has changed?
Yeah.
Right. Bills are still skyrocketing. Public transport is still incredibly expensive. People can't afford to have a good time, and I think that's the main thing. So people are looking at the Labour Party and going, well, what actually are you going to change? Because the only change I'm seeing is things are getting more expensive. You know, Labour promised to reduce people's bills. Bills have gone up by 12% since Labour have got into power. So either you couldn't do that, and if you can't do that, that's okay. But just admit it, or you can't, or you don't want to do it. So they've kind of got to weigh that up. But I think you can see with the Green Party, for example, Zach Palansky's social media output very much has a lot of similarities to what Zohran Mamdani is doing, and I think that will continue. It resonates with people. People want things to be better, and particularly on the left, it's not going to come at the expense of immigrants and other marginalised communities. It's going to be at the expense of the people who can afford to give more.
So I'm going to give some viewers a little bit of context as well. I've seen Harry working sneakily, trying to just sprinkle in chat about the Green Party, and that's because recently he just became a Green Party member.
It's not intentional. I'd be saying if I wasn't a member.
Don't worry,
yeah.
you have to speak your truth. Speak your truth. So that's my final question on this kind of topic. Then, do you think Zach Palansky could be our Zohran Mamdani?
I would like to think so, but obviously different voting system, different.
But I mean, in the things that he's trying to
Yeah,
inspire.
definitely. I think I see a lot of the similarities with, say, the surging support for Corbyn between 2015 to 2017. Obviously, establishment media can't smear Zach Palansky as an anti-Semite, given that he's Jewish, but they'll still find other ways. I mean,
That's the trump card.
Well, all they've got on the guy is he once did some hypno stuff, which he's talked about, and it's very clear that he got set up for that. Made it very clear it wasn't a service that he typically offered. He's kind of owned it. What else have they got? Like his teeth. That's literally it. I mean, I speak as someone whose bottom row teeth do look like they could have played under Big Sound. It's just like that's all you've got. And the ideas that he's putting across are really cutting through for people, and that's why I think membership for the Green Party is at least over 150,000. Probably going to get near 200,000 by this time next year, maybe. And that momentum is just going to continue. Obviously, we are a long way off from a general election, but we also have locals next year in May, and hopefully the surge in support for the Green Party does translate into votes, which obviously translates into winning council seats and potentially control of councils. And I think, for example, that's kind of been a problem that Reform have had, where they've been campaigning and they've been saying, we're gonna cut public spending, make it more efficient. We're also going to cut taxes. They get in charge of these councils, they look at the budgets and realise that the majority of the funding that they have is going towards statutory services, which they legally have to provide. There's no money to take away from stuff. This country isn't spending like millions of pounds on DEI and woke nonsense, as some people might put it. The funding just isn't there. And so I think people are going to start seeing, when they start raising council tax, that actually, what they're putting across is not a viable alternative. But hopefully, the Greens can succeed where Reform are failing. But we'll see.
We'll only wait and see. So yeah, if you actually check out some of the recent episodes, myself and Noah have definitely sung our praises around Zach Palansky and the Green Party, because I definitely agree. He's bringing a lot of hope and a lot of optimism. And just circling back to the original topic, obviously, hopefully, inshallah, as the Muslims say, inshallah, as I'm praying, Zohran Mamdani becomes the mayor of New York.
And the communist ummah gets established.
This is a real sort of Islamo-socialist alliance going on.
Links
right
up
now
with Londonistan, and we'll be ready. We'll be ready to go.
And it doesn't help. I mean, it really helps that the guy he's running against is a nonce as well.
Yeah. Is Andrew Cuomo?
Andrew Cuomo, 13 sexual allegations.
Were they against? They were against women, right? They weren't children.
Oh yeah. I mean, you're going on like the particular definition.
I just don't want you guys to get sued. That's the clarify.
And speaking of nonces, which is an interesting segue. As a British patriot, Harry, how do you feel about Prince Andrew?
Well, I'm a Republican in the sense that I believe we should have an elected head of state, not that women don't deserve reproductive rights. So, I mean, I'm always been against the existence of the royal family. But this whole thing with Prince Andrew, the fact that it's taken this long, and the fella doing the various interviews that he's done over the years really has not helped himself. I mean, paying £12 million to a woman that he claims he's never met, courtesy of his mother giving him the money. It's just people need to be able to see the absurdity of the monarchy and forget like taking away Andrew's titles. Take the titles away from all of them. We don't need a monarchy. We don't need it.
All right, so that's his Republican run.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, let me just break down the actual news that's happened this week around Prince Andrew, because it's been kind of crazy. So King Charles has begun the process to strip Prince Andrew of his royal titles and honours, and that's obviously due to the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. And look, search his name on the internet. There's a lot of evidence around his complicity with Epstein, attendance to sex parties, etc. There's even more evidence published this month in a new book that literally came out this week, The Windsor Legacy, which mentions how sex-enhancing drugs were discovered at the royal family's estate after Prince Andrew threw a party for Epstein and his wife, Ghislaine Maxwell. But I also want to bring attention on not forgetting Prince Andrew's main accuser, the late Virginia Giuffre.
Yes.
Who died earlier this year after she got into a random car crash and then allegedly committed suicide after that. Now, look, I don't want to come across as a conspiracy theorist on this show, and I'm not going to allege anything, but look, Epstein clearly didn't kill himself. So I find it very hard to play that there wasn't some sort of foul play in Giuffre's death.
Definitely. And I think with a lot of this conversation, it always has to be on the victims of these awful crimes
100%.
and the trauma that they've gone through. And thankfully, they are starting to get some justice. It just seems to be that the powers that be are trying to do their utmost to make sure that they don't get the full justice that they deserve. And so I think with all of this conversation, yes, focus on Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, Prince Andrew, or Andrew, as he will soon be known, but always keep the victims of these awful, disgusting crimes in your thoughts and in your conversations about it.
And one of the ways viewers at home can do that is actually purchasing her own memoir, which is called Nobody's Girl. So it only recently came out, I think just a few weeks ago. So it's a posthumous publication. And in that, she says the following. So she says she was trafficked by Epstein. And in her words, she was savagely raped by a prime minister who is unnamed. And also, she says she met Prince Andrew in multiple occasions. She also accuses Andrew of employing tactics to silence and suppress her voice. And this is a quote from her book. After casting doubt on my credibility for so long, Prince Andrew's team had gone so far as to hire internet trolls to harass me. Prince Andrew has not commented on the book and obviously denies these allegations. And Donald Trump, just to kind of spice things up, has commented on the stripping of his medals, saying this is a terrible thing, and yet still denies to release the Epstein files.
Yeah, I mean, I think with someone like Donald Trump, I mean, the connections that he's got with Epstein are very well known. And obviously he denies a lot of them. And obviously one of the big things that he campaigned on was the releasing of the Epstein files. But clearly his name is referenced in them, and that's why they haven't been released. And it's kind of like, what can be done to kind of get him to croak? And I've always seen people suggest that all it's going to take is a journalist to basically say, is the reason you didn't go to the island because you weren't rich enough. And hopefully that will like trigger something in that child mind of his that basically just makes him blur everything out. But we'll see.
Yeah.
But I think, again, what we are seeing is the establishment using their powers to silence victims of these awful crimes. And it's, if you've got nothing to fear, why are you trying to do everything you can to hide it? Because clearly they know that their PR will be completely muddied, and there may be some serious sanctions levied against them. But it's disgusting. And I think I remember watching that documentary on Netflix about Epstein and the survivors of his horrific crimes, and you think, if you're angry before, you'll be even angrier after. And I think that's why engaging with all the media and literature that you can about what this guy has been up to and the victims of his crimes needs to be done.
I think the entire story of Epstein as well reminds me of that famous political proverb that power tends to corrupt, but absolute power corrupts absolutely. Yeah. And when people look into the Epstein story, it really is a fascinating and a horrific sort of rabbit hole of the elite matrix around these kind of sex networks and trafficking networks.
I mean, all these people at these parties, all these famous people that you see, when you see pictures, I believe there's a photo with Naomi Campbell in there, a very well-known supermodel. And everything else that's been going on, all those famous people there, they will know this sort of stuff. People talk, people whisper, people know this stuff. It's like, say someone like Russell Brand, for example, all the stuff that he's been accused of, and it was apparently a very well-known secret within the British comedy circle that he was an absolute pest. And the guy should not be left alone with women because of what he is capable of. You can only hope that the victims of his alleged crimes get the justice that they deserve.
One interesting forward-looking question I have around this, particularly with this symbolic case with Andrew, is, look, it feels like the cultural power of the monarchy, i.e. Queen Elizabeth, is a thing of the past. Yeah. And we're living in a time where the biggest political narrative is around British patriots, British culture. So do you think then, what is the future of the royal family, and is it losing its symbolic role?
Well, I imagine that when William becomes king, that there will be a lot of stripping down, of taking away of titles, sort of modernise the monarchy. Make it. I mean, if you're going to modernise the monarchy, you would abolish it, but obviously they're not going to do that. But I imagine that it will be a lot smaller. A lot of people will lose their titles. But again, I think as people feel more braver coming out about this sort of stuff and the various scandals that the royal family have been involved in, pressure will hopefully mount and some change will happen. Hopefully a lot of change. But you never know. I think it's like with a lot of this sort of stuff. My mother, for example, whenever she talks about whenever there's a case in the news about a woman being brutally assaulted and potentially killed, she always says to me, like, I can't believe that now that I'm in my 50s, that we're still fighting the same battles that we were fighting when I was in my teens and my 20s. And so I feel like the powers that be will just adapt. And they'll change the way that they do things, but they will still try and get away with the stuff that they've been doing.
Yeah, no, definitely. And speaking of outdated institutions that are probably going to crumble in our lifetime, this week, Kemi Badenoch, leader of the Conservative Party, has said that they have nearly ran out of money after their huge election defeat in 2024. And this is because major party donors pulled back or paused giving, reducing the party's funds. And it also comes as a result of obviously facing competition with Reform. So Kemi Badenoch actually admits they nearly went bankrupt. And I mean, this is absolutely insane.
I mean, don't threaten us with a good time, Kemi. Come on now.
But this is insane because the Conservative Party is arguably the most successful political vehicle, not even in just Europe, but the entire world history. And so in a matter of years, it's nearly gone bankrupt.
Yeah, I mean, I think after that disastrous election result for them, I mean, where do they go from there? Because a lot of the gimmicks they tried, that sort of populist stop the boats mantra, it didn't work for them in the end because people had had enough. But yeah, I mean, it's where does the Conservative Party go from here? Because obviously, you look at a lot of the people that are defecting from the Conservative Party to the Reform Party. Your Lee Andersons, for example, obviously did that way before the election. I think they've realised they don't have the motion that they used to have because people just aren't enthused. I saw footage from the Conservative Party conference, and from what I could gather, people were either living in denial or they were just like, "Where do we actually go from here? What do we have?" And I think choosing Kemi Badenoch as opposed to Robert Jenrick was probably a mistake for them.
Okay.
I feel like with Robert Jenrick, I mean, he's gone big on like the, don't bump trains, the awful comments that he made about Birmingham.
He was going down the high streets, Turkish barbershops.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, I remember, that footage of him when he's at, where was it? Was he at Stratford Station? And he's like, "You're going to pay?" And those guys go, "Fuck off." And I was like, yeah, I would say that to you. Bro, not that I bump train. I want to be very clear. I do not bump the train.
Jenrick, welcome to Londistan.
Londistan, yeah. Come here, you short ass. But yeah, no, Robert Ozempic, as I've heard some people call him. Yeah, I mean, where does the Conservative Party go from here? A lot of the seats, a lot of the gains that Reform UK made in the local elections this year came from Conservative-led councils. And I think that's very telling of where people are at. They don't trust the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party since 2010 promised to reduce net migration. They weren't able to do it. Now, obviously, net migration is a benefit in my opinion. It's a net positive for the economy and for wider society. But obviously, for the people that are voting Conservative, they don't want that to happen. So if the Conservative Party isn't delivering, they're going to go to other people. And so what you probably will find is Reform UK dictate where the Overton window is going to be. The Overton window, for people listening who aren't aware, it's the idea of what is politically acceptable to talk about. So a good example would be, say, gay marriage, for example. Gay marriage was very much outside the Overton window in the 90s, early 2000s, but by the 2010s, it was very much within it and seen as a socially acceptable and politically acceptable thing to talk about and advocate for. So some of the things that we've been hearing about, remigration and mass deportations used to be very much on the fringes of the right, but now it's very much mainstream political discourse. And it's not uncommon when there's an awful attack that happens in the United Kingdom that you hear politicians calling for mass deportations, remigration of various communities. And so it's very scary where we're going in that respect. But where does the Conservative Party go from here? I think they probably will go in that direction, but I don't think that someone like Kemi Badenoch is going to be the face of that. It would not surprise me if she's gone before the next election, similar what happened to Ian Duncan Smith, obviously for different reasons. But I just don't think, what does she have? Leader of the opposition is historically a very difficult job in politics. There's a reason only 4 people have gone from being leader of the opposition to becoming the prime minister: David Cameron, Margaret Thatcher, Blair and Starmer. I don't see Badenoch becoming the 5th. Yeah. I'd be very surprised if she's even an MP by the next election.
I'll be surprised that when Reform come into power, they don't deport her as well, to be honest.
But this is the thing with Badenoch. A lot, wasn't she banging on about health tourism the other day?
Yeah.
And someone pointed out, your mum came from Nigeria to have you in the UK. You were born, and then you went back to Nigeria. That is textbook health tourism.
I think the irony is just plain for everyone to see.
It's like, what does she have? I mean, when she's going on BBC News going I was the class SWAT. I once snitched on a kid that was cheating in a test. It's like, no one likes a snitch.
Dare I say...
As a teacher, I can tell you, we don't like snitches. We don't.
Dare I say that perhaps even Theresa May is cooler than her? And the bar's low. The bar is low.
The door's right there. This is the thing with people like Theresa May. I can't stand the liberal rehabilitation of her. I don't know if you saw that documentary on Grenfell. Yeah. I remember when Grenfell happened, and I watched that documentary, and I had to watch it in about 3 parts because I just found myself getting so upset and angry about what I was seeing, and the fact that she had the brass neck to feature on that documentary and give her 2 pence is like, fuck off. Yeah. Go away. That is your memory. You were on borrowed time the moment Stormzy called you out at the Brits. Why are you still here? Your time's up. Just go. Disappear.
Yeah, I think. And it's very interesting what you said about the Overton window, because you can actually sort of plot the trajectory of a lot of these political views over time. Yeah. Because famously, Theresa May was the architect of the hostile environment policy, which kicked off a lot of the Windrush scandal. And so over time, that kind of hardening against immigrants and people not from the country is literally how we got here and how now
mate, it's been going on for donkeys. You can look at Daily Mail articles that were written back in the early 1900s about Jewish refugees that were victims of the pogroms that were going on in Eastern Europe. The same stuff that was said about them, very similar to what's being said about refugees nowadays. All that's changed is the target. Yeah. And the fact that people can't see the parallels as to what is going on is very concerning. Those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. And I don't know when it will start becoming less hostile, but I think, again, as we've seen with a lot of this stuff, people just regenerate and rebrand.
I think you just said something quite interesting. Those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it, because the thing that's coming into my mind, listening or just hearing about this Conservative Party story, is... This sounds like a bit of a tangent, but bear with me. Yeah. In English literature, we all studied the Ozymandias poem. Do you remember that?
I do remember it, yeah. Poetry Anthology, GCSE.
There you go.
I remember it.
And in Ozymandias, there's a quote that's always stood out to me for a long time, and it says that half sunk shattered a visage lies. So it's talking about how this great structure once in the desert has now crumbled in front of us, and that what used to be there is now just a half-sunk shattered visage, right? The face itself is crumbling. And so there's a really interesting thing here around how we are quite literally in real time seeing the fall of an empire. For many young people, you won't remember the Conservative Party being the dominant or the kind of insurmountable political force in British politics. And right in front of our eyes, we're starting to see the end of what used to be, again, something that people thought couldn't be beat. And I feel like it's just an interesting critical juncture in our political lives, really, where even that's reflective of perhaps the British Empire, the American Empire as well. Only time will tell.
I mean, I do think with a lot of it, when you look at, it looked like the Conservative Party were on the ropes back in 2014, 2015 with the surge of UKIP under Farage. And obviously Cameron promising the in-out referendum on Europe and then winning a 20-seat majority was able to keep them, it basically actually give them a majority government. And obviously Reform only got one, UKIP, got one seat in that election. But I think what we've seen is I think Farage is the main... is the main attraction. You know, he left UKIP. What are they doing now? They're dressing up as renter thugs, going and harassing everyone. Nick Tenconi, very, very English name, it must be said, when you call him for remigration. He's an interesting chap. But yeah, I think with Farage, it wouldn't surprise me actually if he left Reform UK, that he maybe formed a different movement, that Reform UK would fall back down, as we've seen. I mean, you look at some of the characters in that party, put them at the forefront, they just look weird.
and the one thing we say on this show, nightmare blunt rotation.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, look, I think we're going to wrap it up for the state of play there, because we have a very interesting section coming up next. Welcome to Let Me Land, where Harry has prepared a very hot, a spicy take to come at me with. Now listen, just a little bit of housekeeping rules. I'm going to be devil's advocate to his view. This does not represent my views. I reckon the thing he will say is something I agree with, but I'm just trying to push his views to make sure that he can get it out properly. And also, we're kind of running over, so sorry about that. But listen, when you have a guest like Harry, these things happen. So, Harry, without further ado, land your view.
So, my Let Me Land is you have more in common with an immigrant than you do a billionaire.
So now I'm going to be a white British patriot for this conversation, yeah?
It's not too bad, mate. I'm one.
All right, okay. All right, then. So what do you mean by that? Tell me.
So what I mean by that is I think we've seen over the last 20 years, 15 years, particularly since the Syrian refugee crisis, a lot of anti-refugee rhetoric in the United Kingdom, also just anti-immigrant rhetoric. What you find is a lot of it overlaps and changes. You've probably heard people referring to people crossing over the channel as illegal immigrants. They are not illegal immigrants. Illegal immigrant typically refers to someone who overstays a visa, for example. Seeking asylum is not illegal. There is nothing in the UN Refugee Convention that says it is illegal to seek asylum, nor do you have to settle in the first safe country that you arrive in. And what we've seen is, particularly within politics and the media, a lot of anti-immigrant rhetoric directed towards people who are struggling, and basically it being shown as like, look, these people who are coming over, they're getting put in 5-star hotels. Look at all the support that they're getting. What are you getting? And basically encouraging them to hate those people. When really, there's more than enough wealth to go around. It's concentrated in very few hands. And what we need is a redistribution of that wealth to deal with these issues. So, for example, say homelessness, for example. You've probably seen, why are we putting immigrants in hotels when there's homeless people on the streets? Now, we've proven in this country we can end homelessness. We saw it during the pandemic in 2020. The government put homeless people, took them off the streets and put them in temporary accommodation to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. After COVID-19 sort of ceased being a problem, they were just let back out again. We proved that we could end it. It's a political choice because in a capitalist country like the United Kingdom, you need people at the bottom. Homeless people, they're the underclass. You need them at the bottom. So people who are slightly above think, oh, well, things could get worse because if I don't do this, I don't do that, I'm going to end up in that situation. And so for me, it's, you have more in common with the people who are fleeing war and persecution than you do with the multi-millionaires, multi-billionaires who are telling you to hate those guys.
But what is it, like, what exactly do I have in common with the people fleeing persecution?
Well, you want a good life. I think that's the main thing. The people who are coming over from overseas, either as a refugee or just as a economic migrant, which is a term. I mean, it's always a weird term that people use. Like, because my dad's an economic migrant. Technically, he came over from the Netherlands to the United Kingdom for work, and so it's like these people. You have a lot in common with them. They love their families. They obviously can't love their country at the moment because of what's been going on. you have more in common with them than the people who are there at the top. You know, someone like, you know, Nigel Farage, Boris Johnson, they may present themselves as being the bloke down the pub. They fucking despise you guys. I don't know if you saw that clip of the Reform UK conference of Nigel Farage doing a video showing this woman's Reform UK tattoo. I know full well the second that they were off camera, they were taking the piss out of that woman. They don't care about those people. And so I found, you know, obviously for myself, obviously coming from half immigrant background, a lot of people that I've engaged with, I find that a lot of the concerns are the same.
Yeah.
And people just don't recognize that because, you know, you don't look the same. And I think that's the main main thing.
Okay, so then again, assuming I'm a sort of British patriot who's anti-migrant,
Yeah.
I understand that there's some sort of human element to it where I can relate to them in theory, but in practice, what I'm seeing is that these people are coming over the border. They don't share the same cultural values as me. They believe different things to me. And even if it is the case that there are these really rich people, these rich people I can actually have conversation with.
Yeah.
I can actually have discourse with. Whereas these migrants who are coming over, they don't even want to integrate with me.
So what I would say with integration is a very big thing at the moment, and the government hasn't allowed it to happen. Typically what happens is people that come over, they just get put in one area, and there's, you know, they're kind of kept the same, and also the stuff that's said in the media about them, kind of like the seeds of doubt and this sort of fear of, oh, look at these people, they're different to you, they have different values. You find a lot of the values are interchangeable. A lot of the values, say in Islam, for example, are quite similar to Christianity and in Judaism as well. It's just because, you know, people look different, wear different clothing, that perhaps that's where people see that friction.
So it's like a superficial.
Yeah, 100%. Okay. And with integration as well, one of the best ways of integrating with any society, any country, is learning the language. Now, the Conservative government under David Cameron, they cut funding for English language classes. Now, look, Duolingo is all well and good, but having an actual teacher in an ESOL class, that is one of the best ways of learning a language. I can say for myself, obviously learning Dutch, you know, I found it was a lot easier, you know, going to the country, spending time with my family, spending time with other people, engaging within that and learning how to speak it, and also learning how to speak like the locals. You know, it's all well and good learning King's English, but being within those areas and working is another key thing as well. People who are coming over on small boats, they're not allowed to work until their claims have been processed. So they're just sitting about. And obviously then you have like the gig economy exploiting those people, you know, like Uber Eats, that sort of thing, Deliveroo. And so that's obviously where people read stories in the media. And I think one of the best ways of getting people to integrate is, you know, learning the language, working within the community, working with other people. You know, in my last job, I worked with Ukrainian refugees, and I learned a lot more about their culture and what was going on there, more than I perhaps would from the media and listening to what the politicians were saying.
Okay, fine. So these migrants, they might need help. They might need some support. But do you know who else needs support and help? Me. Yeah. I live in this country, and then I'm seeing migrants come over, and they have access to doctors on demand. If I want to get an NHS appointment, do you know how long it takes for me to wait?
I know how long. Obviously, I know how long the waiting list is, but that's not the fault of the people coming over. What should be said with the hotel, people go, they've been put up in 5-star hotels. Once they become asylum seeker accommodation, they cease to become hotels. And I know people think hotels, they think Life of Riley, luxury. It's not. You can have like 5-6 people all in a room. It's very cramped, not great conditions, and also the reason they are in hotels was because there were diphtheria outbreaks in migrant processing centres down in Kent, which meant they had to be moved to different places. Also, you look at the amount of money that's involved in these contracts that are being given to individuals to run asylum seeker accommodation. It's minted. So why would they stop the use of hotels when they're making so much money from it? And again, obviously, yes, the strain on public services, but that's because historically, for the last 15 years, we've had austerity measures where funding for public services has not risen as a percentage of our GDP, which means people can't get the support that they need. And so that's where the problems lie. It's not the fault of people coming over, it's the people in control of the money and the resources. And so that's where the issue is.
And okay, fine. And my last point, to be the kind of anti-migrant...
How are you finding it, by the way?
It's very difficult. It's very difficult. I mean, you're an eloquent debater.
Thank you very much.
Okay, fine. So it is their fault. It might be the people who make decisions' fault. That's okay. I don't like Labour. I don't like Conservative. I'm voting for Reform because Reform are saying, yeah, you know what? There is a bit of limited money. But with that limited money, it's going to go to me and it's not going to go to people coming over. And so, therefore... why should I even care? Why should I even have empathy for these people coming over? Because that's life, and we should take care of our own before other people.
So what I would say with one of the Reform UK's big things is leaving the European Convention on Human Rights. And they say, you know, if we can leave the ECHR, it's going to make it easier to stop small boat crossings. Look at what the ECHR guarantees us. Every law in this country has to be compatible with the ECHR. So look at like the Rwanda deal, for example. Also, that links to the Human Rights Act of 1998, which is another thing that they want to scrap and replace with a British Bill of Rights, which again would only be applicable to people from this country and people that were born here, which means that essentially immigrants would become second-class citizens in this country. Look at what the ECHR guarantees: right to pension, right to labour laws as well. These are all things that affect everyone, and I think what's happened, say like Article 8, I believe, right to family life. That often gets cited a lot in deportation cases as the reason that this deportation can't happen. That also includes things like right to privacy, for example. We scrap the ECHR. A lot of our rights are going to be open for selection, and I don't want to live in a country where, you know, my rights can be taken at a whim. I want those protections, I want those securities, as I know other people do as well. It's just because of the framing of these conversations often revolves around one select group. And Tony Benn, the late Labour politician, famously said, the way that a government treats refugees is very telling of how they would treat their citizens if they could get away with it. And I think, as we've seen, they're more than capable of doing that.
And okay, final point then, okay? Because there is one more narrative here that I think we're missing.
Yeah.
And it's that, okay, there's commonalities and there's differences. One of the differences is around attitudes and culture and existence living here. It seems like those who are coming over, particularly migrants, are just inherently more violent. Every day I'm flicking on the news and I'm seeing a migrant attack, which they are actually happening, to innocent people. Yeah,
well, let's be very clear that all crimes are awful and should be condemned, and people should be punished and put in prison for the crimes that they commit. What I would say to that is, everyone, people of all walks of life are committing crimes, and it should be dealt with. I don't think there should be a particular emphasis on one group of people that are committing one crime, because, you know, like the stuff that's said about sex crimes, for example, a lot of that focus on immigrants, and you hear a lot like the protect our women and girls stuff. And that sort of mantra. I'm of the belief that all sex crimes are bad and should be dealt with. I don't think it should be subject to the perpetrator's skin color as to how serious that crime is dealt with. There are very serious issues around women's safety, but the common denominator when you look at these crimes that are committed towards women and girls is men. That is the common denominator. Okay. People can cite culture, ethnicity, nationality, but the bottom line is it's men. And until we look at why men, irrespective of their backgrounds, hold those views and want to commit those actions against women and girls, we're not going to get anywhere. But I don't think that's a conversation that people want to have, particularly men, because if you do, you have to reflect internally, and people sometimes don't want to admit that perhaps some of their actions haven't been okay to do. And but I think if people can be reflective, then we will be much better off.
Ooh, okay. So I think you landed that. Let me know.
Thank you. I had a good flight.
Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And now we're going to head into our final section, the echo chamber. So welcome to the echo chamber, where now we're not oppositional forces. We're going to come together and just trying to work out a problem together, just putting by, just getting our thoughts out there and just bouncing off each other. And Harry, look, we're two young male content creators online, probably both chronically online, spend too much time on there.
Way too much online.
Screen time's way too high.
Teaching's a blessing. I get away from it. So.
And I want to talk about two related topics. One, this kind of narrative around masculinity. So what does it mean to be a man? And based off our understanding of what it means to be a man, why do we think that so many young boys are actually being attracted to becoming reform voters? So even if I just open it up really quickly, like your ideas around masculinity.
I think for me, I was raised by my mother is a feminist, and she very much raised me and my brother to be that way as well. So we were very much from a young age enlightened to the struggles that women face within society, also men as well. And for me, a lot of my politics derives from the experiences of my mother, and also within her community. And for me, I think that's often shaped the way that I've felt about issues. I remember when Me Too was happening, and I never, when people saying like, oh, men can't do this, no, men can't do that. I never felt that sort of stuff applied to me, because I felt like, well, I'm not a piece of shit.
Okay.
And I don't understand, so I don't understand why I need to be scared of women speaking out against things that are being done to them, because I know that I'm not someone that's doing that sort of thing. And I mean, yeah, it's difficult being a bloke. I think it is difficult. It is difficult being a bloke, and there are challenges that I face. But I don't think it's the fault of women. And I think that's the main thing. I think, look, growing up, being told you got to do this, you got to do that. And people, it kind of links back to sort of a lot of the anti-migrant stuff, for example. Okay. People are frustrated with their lives and they want a scapegoat. They want a reason as to why their lives are shit. Yep. And I think a lot of these sort of alpha male e-celebs, for example, they sort of offer up women as the reason that they can't be the men that they want to be. And it's like, well, if you're a good bloke, you're a good bloke. You're not going to feel that you can't do certain things.
And the thing about the resurgence of reform is that they are playing on much of this kind of alpha male macho type politics, where it's very hardline. Yeah. The principles of compassion or mercy is completely devoid from their politics, and I think that is really appealing to a lot of young men.
I think it's a lot of the gym culture, for example. I remember there was a family member of ours that really got into his gym, stuff like that. And it was good to see him getting out and getting healthy. But it was kind of the knock-on effects from that, a lot of the stuff that he was saying, which was quite a shock, given obviously I've known him for a long time. And some of the things that he was coming out with regarding women, obviously there was a certain very prominent figure in 2022. I don't want to say his name, because if you want to publish this clip, it might get taken down. Yeah, I'm sure we all know who I'm referring to. And I remember my mother, who became aware of this guy, and she spoke to this member of our family about him and some of the things that he was saying. And he went, oh, well, I don't think it's that bad. And it's like, what? Yeah. What's going on here? And he doesn't follow that sort of stuff anymore, because I think he's kind of realised how kind of fucked up it really is. Yeah, I can understand. I think getting healthy, being fit is a very good thing to do. But I think it some of the things it can lead into, which is very easy to avoid. If you want to go to the gym, go to the gym, but doesn't mean you have to hate women.
Yeah, no, I think the conversation around this particular topic of masculinity it gets really polarized, because on the one hand you have people who do it in a very toxic way, and then on the other hand you have people who are reacting to that toxicity by saying, oh no, going to the gym is too toxic, etc. But I think there needs to be a healthy balance where young men, they have privilege, they have a biological advantage, and so going to the gym, taking care of yourself, being healthy, having some discipline, is a good thing.
Is anyone calling going to the gym toxic?
Well, I think that's what the people who are imbued in the kind of toxic
the straw man sort of thing, exactly. Or straw woman, I guess, actually. I suppose is.
But then that's the problem of being so chronically online.
Yeah, definitely. Get offline, guys. So what I do when I post a video at 8:00, and then for the next hour and 52 minutes, I'm not on my phone. I'll go and do something else that's a lot more appealing to myself. And I find that that's so effective. Also, just talking with people as well. When awful stuff happens in the news and we read about cases, so what I found, do you remember when Sarah Everard was murdered?
Yeah, of course.
I sort of looked at a lot of that sort of stuff, and a lot of speaking to my female friends, women in my family, what can men do to make women feel safe? I even actually remember when I was about 15, I had a massive growth spurt and I became really tall. And my mother one day sat me down and said, look, you're now at a height when you're going out and about where women may feel intimidated by you. And that's not a reflection on you, because I know that you're not that sort of person, but it's how you might be perceived. And when I heard that, and then she told me okay, so, let's say you're walking along the street and it's just you and another woman, either cross the road or be on the phone, or just make yourself obvious, or just wait and let them continue walking. And I appreciated that. I mean, I was obviously 15. I didn't fall down like that alt-right pipeline a lot of young lads our age at the time would have fell down. That's because my Wi-Fi was dead secure, so there was no way I could have fallen down that sort of stuff. But I never felt like I was being accused of something. I just felt like people were making me aware. It's like if you go to like a different city, people might say, "Oh, by the way, mind out for this," because they don't want you to like get pickpocketed or something like that. And so I think it's just being open to what women and girls are saying. That's what I found for me.
Because I think a lot of it flows from insecurity as well.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of the narratives that a lot of young men are exposed to online is this feeling that they're not enough.
Yes, 100%.
And the reason that they're not enough is because you have the figures of the online gurus who are strong and tough and mighty and tell them that actually no, getting some girls is going to solve your problem.
I think what people need to remember about those sort of lads is that all of it is staged.
Yeah.
And these are very sad, insecure losers who... The reason they have to document everything that they do in their lives is because if they told people about it, they wouldn't believe them. A lot of the interactions you see them with women on like these sort of dating shows and stuff like that, it's all staged. It's cinema, right? You're supposed to be entertained. A lot of that stuff doesn't work in real life because it's just not appealing. A lot of the interactions you see them maybe having with women where they approach them on like Carnaby Street and stuff like that, they're just stopping them. And because women are basically taught to basically just keep themselves as still as possible in order not to aggravate men in particular, they kind of just let it slide and they carry on, and that shouldn't be the case because of what might be said or done to them.
And I want to kind of like connect it back to what can politicians or political parties do to actually engage young men now, because obviously I think one of the reasons why reform feels so attractive is because, again, they're quite forceful. Nigel Farage is a great orator, and so it appeals to the kind of, I guess, archetypical masculinity.
Yeah, what I would say about Farage, though, his appeal amongst young men, remember when he was doing all those cameos and all the clips that were getting posted of him on TikTok? That's a big part of it, because it was kind of like he kind of just got seen as like this meme figure, getting Farage to say up the rah and stuff like that. He was seen as funny, or him saying like big chungus and all this sort of stuff. It was funny, it was amusing. And so, people kind of just see him as this character. And obviously then when you start looking at him and looking at his politics, it can be appealing because you find him like funny and relatable. And I think that's a big part of it. I'm not suggesting that politicians get on Cameo and start calling for the support of extremist organizations. I mean, what can they do? But actually what I would say is the polling I've looked at, particularly amongst 18 to 24-year-olds, the support is predominantly with the Green Party and also the Labour Party. Reform usually come around third. And I think what we've seen...
And is that for males or...?
It's just across the board. It's not breaking down by gender. I'm sure you probably see more support for Reform UK amongst young men than you would women. However, I think with what Reform UK is saying about national minimum wage and for young people saying it's suggesting it should be more, that support may dwindle. But who honestly knows? But what I would say is, I mean, I can say as a man myself, I've never felt intimidated by the rise of feminist movements and causes, because to me, like, if women are happier and they feel more safer and secure, men will feel the same way as well, because it's for the betterment of everyone.
It's kind of like our idea when people say patriarchy affects men too.
100%. I mean, like, I think about the media that I grew up with and all the sort of stuff that's shown. I mean, it doesn't help when you have like TV shows that feature teenagers when you got a 30-year-old who's completely shredded playing a 15-year-old. It's, like it does fuck with your psyche. And so I think as I've sort of gotten older and I've looked back on sort of periods of my life where I could have been quite susceptible to like incel ideology and stuff like that, very grateful that I had the people around me that wouldn't have allowed me to have fallen into those traps. And I think predominantly it's about support network and reaching out to people and not being afraid to have these conversations, and also to say, I'm struggling. I think that's the main thing. I think as blokes, we struggle saying that. I know for me, like last year around sort of February, March, I was very unwell. And I didn't tell anyone about it because I felt like a failure. I had graduated from university. I was still working a minimum wage job. Yes, I was doing TikTok and that was going okay, but I wasn't really doing anything with it in terms of making any money. I couldn't stop doing what I was doing. I felt shit. And I felt like had I not had the support network around me, nor the politics that I had, I could have very easily fallen down that that sort of alt-right pipeline.
Insecure.
Yeah, exactly. Pipeline. Because I was frustrated. I was angry. I wanted someone, I wanted a reason that my life was shit. And I was able to see through it. Like, look, job market's fucked for graduates. You know, everyone else is struggling as well. It's not an uncommon thing. You're not alone. And you shouldn't feel insecure about that because everyone else is going through the same thing. So, you know, band together, figure out how this stuff can change.
And then that kind of circles us back to that final point around how you wanted a reason your life's shit.
Yeah.
So many people want reasons their life's shit.
Yeah.
And who are the charlatans that are able to do that in very eloquent ways? The likes of Nigel Farage, the people who run Reform, etc. I think there's so many different ways we can take that conversation. It was a bit unstructured, but it's always good to kind of flow these ideas out. So leave your comments below about what you actually think as well, because I thank you for opening up as well.
No,
really important.
No, thank you. No, I really appreciate it. Yeah, I think this is the thing. Like, you know, we're boys, and I think it's a good thing to have.
We're men.
Men. Don't look. No, it's a good thing to do, and I think being able to see it as well. You know, I'm sure I'm sort of seen as this sort of left-wing soy boy.
Performative male.
Performative male. Yeah. Someone got my mate's brother called me that the other day. I was wearing a Protect the Dolls t-shirt. Goes, that's very performative of you. And it's like, fuck you. I've been with the community. I've been showing solidarity with the community for time now. But no, I sort of get that, and I think that's another thing as well. Like, men, boys dressing different, maybe doing different activities and stuff like that, and it being called performative. I just think, what are you trying to get at? Like, look, I think matcha tastes like shit. Sorry, I know, hot take. I don't think it tastes very nice.
I think it's so butters.
No, it's literally like grass cuttings, mate. Like, I don't understand the appeal. But look, if you're a man and you want to drink it, you know, be my guest. I think there's better things you can spend your money on. But that's absolutely fine. But don't think it should be knocked or mocked. I understand why it gets mocked. I think it's in a very sort of silly, harmless way. But I can understand why some men, boys, feel attacked for liking certain things. I mean, like, historically, it's always happened to women and girls, you know, like stuff like boy bands and stuff like that. Even when they show interest in sport, for example, and it's like, oh, you only like this sport because like so-and-so's fit. And it's like, well, no, because they just like the sport. And they like watching it and they like engaging with it. You don't need to ask them what Luis Suarez had for breakfast, mate. Like, you know, do you even know? Probably Ivanovic's ear, but no, it's just like, just get a grip, you know. And I'm sense. Just like, just be normal. And I think that's what you find. Like, if you're normal around women, they'll be normal around you, and you'll have a good time.
I hear it. You need to touch grass, but not the grass that goes into matcha.
Exactly. Yeah, stay away from that. Yeah.
We're gonna cut the echo in there.
Yep.
And move into our closing remarks because we've gone over time. But yeah, let's get into that. Northstar episode 5. Harry, first guest. How was that experience?
It's been good. I've really enjoyed it. It's been good. I haven't done a podcast for ages in person, so getting back into this has been really good, and I'm very glad to be doing it with you.
No, listen, the pleasure's all mine. And we like to ask people, or we're going to ask people who come on just to leave our viewers a little bit of brain food. Yeah. So is there anything that you brought with you that you want to shout out?
I did, actually. I'm glad.
I didn't even see you put that there. What the hell?
No, I didn't put that there. Someone else did it. But yeah, it's this book by Astrid Madimba and Chini Ukata. It's called It's a Continent. And it's basically a very sort of brief history of various African countries. I'm really big into history, but I can't say I knew much about African history and the various struggles that have happened, but also not only the struggles, the achievements that have happened as well. And this book really broke it down for me. I actually spoke to them on my podcast when we did it a few years back. We never released the episode, unfortunately, but they were really insightful and really interesting to listen to. So I would definitely recommend getting a hold of this book. I found this in Waterstones, I think about 2-3 years ago. So I'm sure it's still out there. And definitely, if you can get a copy and give it a read.
You know what? That makes me want to actually shout out one of the books I have on here because it's actually quite similar. So it's called Desert Encounter. It's by Nude Hombo. And the reason why it's so important is because it's one of the only existing pieces of literature that documents the Italian genocide in Libya. And there's a lot of ins and outs and adventure stories in that particular book. And I think people should check it out because, like I said, that's a bit of an unknown history. I think Africa as a continent, even though people use that phrase like a country, it just shows you enough how people don't know about it.
And I think definitely like within sort of Black African history, obviously struggle is a very key part of it for sure, but also looking at the achievements that have happened as well. And I think that's one of the main takeaways I took from that book, that for as many atrocities that have happened in the continent, there are as many achievements. And I think that was a key takeaway that I took from it.
Well, nice. Thank you so much, Harry, for coming on.
Thank you.
We'll leave all his links in the below so you can check out his more fiery hot takes on his social media. Thank you all for tuning in for episode 5 of Northstar Politics. Make sure you subscribe, leave comments. People are saying like this is the only podcast where men should have mics. So if you want us to keep the mics on, please subscribe.
They're probably bringing a license in after this episode.
Yeah, leave a like, and as always, keep your eyes on the North Star. Thank you so much.